Yo, what's going on, everyone? I have an interesting video for y'all today, and we're going to be talking about new TCM victim concepts. Now, we did a video like this before, and we talked about the family members. That video was quite interesting. It seemed like you guys like it. So yes, we're going to do the other team. Just be sure to like the video for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's do it. Okay, so for the first new victim, it's going to be Cody, and he has the ability to copy another victim's special ability, but there is a catch to it. So with this flexible victim, he can only copy the ability of an ally if they're already dead. He would have to find the body, inspect the body for a bit, and then boom, he would be able to use their ability. It would take time to inspect the body, but after he inspects it, the ability will be available after just a few seconds. Yeah, so unfortunately, if your Leland is dead, you find his body, you inspect it, then Cody will then be able to barge a family member. And if you're worried about, well, what the heck, what if I can't find the fallen victims' bodies? Well, when the victims do die, their dead body would be highlighted in an aura when they initially die, and then later on, if Cody is in a certain vicinity of a dead body or the area where they died, that area would be highlighted. So say Cody uses Leland's ability, the Barge, and that goes on cooldown. If he's able to find another dead ally, unfortunately, like Sunny, he could use Sunny's ability afterwards, after a little bit of a cooldown. But I think this ability really shines, for example, if, say your Connie dies in the basement pretty early, and Connie dying really sucks, but fortunately, if you have Cody on your team, you'll be able to copy her ability and pop a lock off of a door. Now, I will say this character should be getting stronger as the game goes on because if nobody's dead, well, what's his ability going to be? At that point, he would gain vision of his ally based on their aura and probably a neighboring family member. Or, you know what, just the victim perhaps, unless he takes certain skills and levels up that ability to give him a different benefit. Now, this isn't something Cody has to activate. It just kind of happens and he gets free information, kind of similar to Sunny, but just not as good because Sunny can kind of activate it when he wants and he gets the information and that vision. For example, if you have a Julie on your team and she activates her ability, you'll be able to read her aura to see where she is. However, when one victim dies on your team that's an ally, you will lose this ability completely and you'll only be able to get your other ability to copy a fallen ally's ability after the fact. Now, when it comes to this character's attributes, I would say his strongest attribute naturally would be endurance, followed by proficiency. And if you're interested in more details about this character's potential backstory and more details on his abilities, please see the description below. Now let's move on to our next victim. This new victim, her name is Samantha. So for this lady, she's actually able to place traps down just like the family member Hitchhiker, but it's definitely a little different. So similarly to Virginia, how she has to inspect a table to be able to use her ability, Samantha would have to inspect a toolbox, and then basically she always have a rope on her, and the way her traps are set up is they're tripwires. Now the length of the tripwire is about the size of two door entrances. It can't be longer than that, so she can't like put it across the whole large room. It's about the length of two doors. Now, when it comes to placing her tripwires, she has to basically start at one location and then move to a different location in the same vicinity of the trip, and there will be a line indicator showing where the tripwire will be connecting to. So Samantha, she would actually technically be able to put these traps wherever she wants, really. She can put them in cracks, doorways, or even other tidy spots that she sees fit. But it is important to know with her ability, when she inspects a toolbox, to get the tripwire, she'll be able to place two tripwires so she can basically lock down two door entrances, for example. And after she does that, she would have to find a new toolbox to inspect to get two traps again. She cannot use the same toolbox to renew her ability. So there's not going to be a case where she's sitting in the basement inspecting the toolboxes down there and placing traps everywhere. She can do that to a degree, but eventually she will run out. So when it comes to the traps visibility, they're quite visible, and basically if the family member is approaching the traps, you'll basically see the line, like the tripwire, kind of shimmer, so it will be visible, and all the family would have to do is to walk up to it kind of slowly and just disarm it. The family members don't need anything to disarm it. It's pretty simple. You just have to be aware it's there. However, if you are aware it's there, it does take a bit of time and maybe the victim can make a play and end up escaping anyways. Now, if the family member does not see it and they trip over the tripwire, then they will be stunned similarly to being door slammed. And based on Samantha, if she levels up the perk to a level 3 and she chooses a certain path, perhaps that aura of that family member will be revealed, but just to her. Now, I will say the way the family members are stunned with this perk is kind of different, but let me explain. So, typically, when family members are stunned, they're stunned for a different duration, but I would say with her, it's a little bit different. So, basically, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So, the bigger the family member is, the longer they'll be stunned, whereas Hitchhiker and Sissy, they wouldn't be stunned as long. And I think this is a nice switch based on how all the other stunts basically work in this game. And also, this is kind of a situation where Sissy can be a bit stronger, so that's cool. And I would say for Samantha, her strongest attribute would be proficiency, and then it would be stealth. Alright, very nice. Now let's talk about our third new victim concept, and his name is George. So we know the family members, they definitely got some big dudes over there. They have Leatherface, and they even had hands. They even have hands, so how much bigger can you get, am I right? And I'm gonna say George is a victim, but he's actually a big dude. He is a big boy. And when it comes to some of his backstory, I'm going to say he's a bodybuilder. With that being said, his strongest attributes will be strength, and then it'll be toughness. And for this character, George, he basically has the ability to grapple a family member, but he doesn't need a bone scrap to do it at the expense of using his ability. So he's basically able to put a family member in kind of a chokehold if he's able to come up behind them and initiate his ability. Otherwise, if he approaches them from the front and then uses his ability, he can basically grapple them and literally just slam them on the floor. Kind of similar to how they gave Hands a slam as one of his executions. So it is important to add with his ability, there's no button mashing needed. It's just kind of fixed for every family member. But as there is just a slight tussle going on before a choke slam or a sleeper hold from the backside, George can slightly reposition himself and the family member he's tussling with. Depending on who the family member is, will determine how much movement George can get while he's in this kind of grapple with this family member. Now, I will say George will be the only type of victim that can grapple Leatherface, but when he grapples Leatherface, there is a slight difference because of Leatherface's chainsaw. So the animation would basically look like Leatherface is trying to slam his chainsaw into George's chest, and there's kind of a tussle there. And I guess the rule with grappling Leatherface as George is George will always lose half of his health. So if he's full HP, it'd go down to half if he chooses to grapple Leatherface in this fashion. However, if George is only at 20% HP and he chooses to grapple, he'll then be at 10, but of course he can bleed out if he doesn't make it to safety. But I will say, George can't die when he uses his ability if it's just him and that other family member, really. If a different family member gets involved, then of course he can take more damage, since he only takes damage if he grapples Leatherface in the first place. Another thing with his ability is he doesn't really lose any grapples when he uses his ability, of course. Another thing that's pretty cool that George can do, if somebody's body blocking an exit gate, say the fuse escape, and he has his ability, he can slightly reposition them to make an exit for his allies. And thank you guys for checking out the video. Let me know what you think below.